Welcome back to Context. We are joined today by Art Berlanga, head football coach at Gonzales High School. Coach, really excited to talk to you today. Thank you for being here.
Come on.
So I'm curious, how did you end up at Gonzales coaching football? If you don't mind, take us through your background, how you got into coaching to begin with, and the process by which you went from job to where you are now.
Yes. So Gonzales High School is definitely the current place I am at. I just finished, well, not finished, but this would have been year 4 as a head football coach. But before we even get there, so how I came up was my first coaching experience came in 2007 at my alma mater school in Grand Junction, Colorado Mesa University. So I did that for 2 years. I decided after my second year that I don't think college football, or not college football per se, but 4-year college football wasn't for me. And the reason why I say that is because I knew I was going to have a family one day. I knew I was going to have children and a wife, and I want to be present. I want to be a present father. I want to be a present husband. So I knew that would take a lot of toll on those two things, because I knew when I pass away and when I die, I don't want to be known as a father who was not there. And a crazy story, when I was coaching at Hartnell Community College, we had this coach come in from South Carolina, and he brought his wife with him, the Gamecocks. And his wife, as the coach, is speaking with Coach Collins. Coach Collins is the Hartnell Community College head coach he's still there. And so they're doing the recruiting thing, and the wife's just hanging out in the office with me, and we're talking. And, I'm going to use this opportunity to speak with her. Hey, why are you guys still married? How did you guys make it work? Right? So I was a newlywed at the time. I just recently was married, and I was coaching at Hartnell at the time. So I just used the opportunity to speak with her and get to know her a little bit. And so we talked, and she told me she shared a story with me that I will never forget. She said that they've been married for over 20 years, and her daughter was graduating from high school. And her father was at the graduation, and her father, the coach, he said that as he watched his daughter get her diploma and walk across the stage, he realized at that moment that he didn't even know who his daughter was. He didn't know her. He didn't know what she liked. She didn't even know she had a boyfriend or not. He knew nothing. So that hit me big time, right? That struck a chord with me. So, and I was like, well, how do you guys make it work between you two as a married couple? She said, we have a date night every week, once a night, a date night. So I took that and I applied it and I implemented that in my marriage. So we have a date night every Tuesday. And then we even took it a step further to where my wife would bring our son to my practice every Wednesday. And I tell you what, Coach, that would rejuvenate me during practice. It'll get me fired up. It'll give me a level of energy that I didn't have at the time. And it would just, I guess rejuvenation would be the best word to describe that. But yeah, just having my family there on the field with me during practice time, even though I'm not per se spending time with them, but just having them there, him running around on the field and interacting with the boys. And it just brings a lot of life to me. So going back, Colorado Mesa University, 2007, 2008 seasons, moved back home because I knew I was eventually going to move back home to Salt Lake, California, where I'm from, which is right outside of it's in the San Luis Valley, Monterey County. I went back home, started coaching for 1 year with the current head coach at the time was named Rodney Starr. I knew at that moment that this was not going to work for me. And the reason why I say that is because I knew I needed a mentor. I needed somebody that I was going to be able to learn from, somebody that can really teach me and show me what it means to be a head coach, because I knew in my mind I had a vision that I wanted to be a head coach one day. I just didn't know what that looked like and how to get there. So I seeked out Coach Avila at Seaside High School. So my twin brother and I, Frankie, we both went out there. And again, for those who don't know, the listeners don't know, I have an identical twin brother who's also a coach and an educator as well. So we're not only are we identical physically, but we're also identical when it comes to careers. So I go to Seaside High, learn a great deal. I really got a great definition of how to run a program the right way, how to interact with the kids, actually people say relationships all the time when you speak with coaches. They talk about the importance of relationships, whether they believe that or not, or actually follow through and have action behind those words. I don't know, but this man is all action, and I love that, and I took that with me. So went back to Salt Lake High School at the 2010. After 1 year at Seaside High, my twin brother Frankie got hired as a head football coach at Salt Lake High School. We both tag teamed that program together for the next 2 years. I decided, you know what, it's time for me to spread my own wings because again, I want to be my own man, right? I want to call the shots, and I wanted to have that title. So I reached out to Coach Collins at Hartnell Community College. I was like, you know, I need more experience. So I went to Hartnell, coached there for 5 years. I was there for 5 years. Learned a great deal. Worked with some great coaches, some great minds, some great men. And JUCO was really a lot of fun because job security is high. Teaching is still teaching, but now you're teaching adults. And I would say the biggest difference between the two, those who have experienced high school, teenagers, and young adults, is the gratitude that young adults give you and show you on a daily basis is I mean, it is night and day, right? So teenagers, as we all been there before, it's all about us. It's all about me. What can you do for me, right? So that was a really great experience I had there. And I didn't know where I was going to go from there, Coach, to be honest with you. I didn't know if I really enjoyed my time there, but I knew it was time for me to be my own boss, right? And I was an assistant coach for 10 years. Gonzalez opened up, and the unique story about Gonzalez is they actually hired a head coach already. They hired a guy. And I didn't know this until after the fact. So Gonzalez High School, and I applied. They never responded to me. I never got a phone call back. Nothing. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm not the dude. So I was like, I'm gonna be a Panther. I'm gonna be a Hartnell Panther again for another year until something else happens. Who knows? It's like, Lord, show me the way. You direct my steps. I have the plans, but you direct me. And that was it. I was faithful to the call, man. And in April, as we know, in the spring, it's late. That's a late time to hire a coach. So in April, I find out that their coach, it fell through. It didn't work out. He just didn't report. I guess he ducked and dodged them, didn't return calls for 2 weeks, and he wasn't coming for whatever reason. I don't know the whole story. That's what I was just told. So, hey, Art, would you like to come in and interview for the job? So yeah, I'd love to interview for the job. So basically they hired me on the spot, right? I get a phone call a couple days later after the interview, and they hired me, and I was like, let's go. So I was school board approved in May. That's how late this process took. In May. When everyone's having spring ball, I'm barely getting officially hired. So I'm scrambling for coach. I'm scrambling to hire a staff. I'm scrambling to understand what I just got myself into, the culture, the climate of the campus, the community, which I'm very familiar with anyway because I'm a South County guy. So, and Gonzales is only 8 miles away from Soledad, where I grew up. And everybody in Soledad, before Soledad High School was built in 1999, everybody in Soledad went to Gonzales High School. So I kind of had that connection already, right? So I get to campus, and I'm the new head coach, and everything I knew that I was capable of, everything I believed in myself that I knew I had, it came to fruition. It came to pass. And I was able to demonstrate everything I've learned through all my experiences, the 10 years I was an assistant coach. And I took great pride in becoming the best assistant coach I could be. It's been said that there's 2 important days of our lives. The first day is the day we are born. The second day is when you find out why you were born. So I knew then this was what I was meant to do, was to lead young men, to serve young men, to teach their heart, to reach their heart, and also win some football games along the way. Because none of that matters unless you win. So they say, yes, coach, but unless you're hanging up banners, or at least a winning record, and you have a culture of winning, you have a mindset of winning, none of that really, it's not going to really take a root. So it was a lot to deal with. First time being a head coach, first opportunity. I tag teamed the Solid program with my brother. I guess you could kind of say I was we're co-head coaches in a way, but I just had the title of being an assistant head coach, as many people have that title as well. So we kind of tag teamed that program together. So I knew what it took. And that was the experience, Coach. And it was just a great time. I'm still in the process right now. And to take the program where there was rumors of canceling the program upon my hire. Like, Art, why would you take this program? Why would you want to go to Gonzales? They don't have any dudes there. They don't have a culture there. They haven't won anything in over 15 years. But I had the self-belief. I'm like, I could be the guy to turn it around. I know I could be the guy. And that's exactly what we did.
Absolutely. And you guys have done a great job since you've been there. And it's been enlightening to watch I don't think it's redevelopment, but the regrowth of that program, which was always a staple when we were younger. And, they were kind of before Soledad and Greenfield opened up, and you had more students, you had a track record of that success. So it's great to see that again. What I want to do here is peel back the layer of the onion a little bit when you said, with my brother, with the mentors that I have had throughout my career, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I felt I was prepared and we were able to execute that. But what did you realize right away that you still needed to figure out when you became the head coach, that you thought you knew, and then you got cold cocked with a left cross that you didn't know?
Coaches, quality coaches. Head coaches are only as good as their staff. We can know all we want. We can have the X's and O's. We can have the scheme. But if you don't have coaches who can teach technique, who can get their kids to buy in, and I learned that early on, where you can be the best head coach you want, but if you don't have assistant coaches who are going to make their individual position groups play for them, you're going to have a real hard time. You're going to have a real hard time understanding why aren't we being successful? How come we're not maximizing our kids? How come we're not maximizing this group, this team? So I learned early on that I had to not only pour into the kids, but I had to pour into my coaches and give them all the resources they need. The connection I had with coaches that I developed relationships with over the years, I brought them in. We had clinics. We're on the whiteboard. We watched film. We met twice a week all spring, coaches meetings to prepare for spring ball, prepare for the summer. I had a vision. And I knew what it took to get there. And I really spent as much time I spent with the kids and the boys, I spent with my coaches as well to develop them, because I didn't have the most experienced coaches per se. I had a lot of local guys, a lot of alumni, but they also were part of that previous regime where just no culture, no direction, no vision, a lot of no self-belief, right? No self-confidence. And that was the biggest thing that I experienced taking over the program there at Gonzales High School, was these kids had no idea what they're capable of. No idea, right? So Thomas Edison once said that if people actually did what they're capable of doing, we would truly astound ourselves. And that's exactly what we did. We spoke affirmation. We spoke life into what we were about to do. I had a vision. Coach, I tell you, I live in Salinas, so I commute 20 to 25 minutes to school, to campus. And as I drive through that stadium on the highway, because our stadium's located right off the highway, and you see the lights, I would envision every single day, every day, envisioned what it looked like to be successful, what it looked like to get my first win, for what it looked like to win a championship, to bring a championship to that program, to that community, right? And people who don't know Gonzales, the city of Gonzales, it's a prideful town, man. People love their football, people love their kids, people love their sports. And the alumni are very prideful people. And I wanted to be that person, bring all that back. And again, I envisioned it. I envisioned the drum line down Spartan Alley. I envisioned the cheerleaders and the team singing the fight song with the community in the stands after each game. I envisioned all of that, beating King City, our rival, getting the megaphone for the first time in 15, 16 years. I envisioned beating all the rivals, Salda, which was my hometown, my alma mater, beating them as well, and have all these visions. I had it, man. And that's the thing. If you don't have there's this blind lady, I read this interview about this blind lady. Her name was Helen Keller. And the interviewer asked her, what is the worst thing about being blind? Is there anything worse than being blind? She says, the thing that's worse is the most pathetic person. She used the word pathetic. The most pathetic person is a person who has their sight, but no vision. So I had vision, man. I had vision.
Awesome. Let me ask this, because you brought it up in a way that I'm sure is going to resonate with others. Coaching your coaches, finding a staff of people with a similar mission, people that are going to pour into these students in a place like Gonzales, like the Peninsula, where it's relatively small. How do you find quality coaches when there's not a ton around? What was your process for that, and what recommendations do you have for others that might be in a similar situation?
Oh, that's a great question. The thing about it is I don't care how much you don't know. I can care less how much scheme you know, X's and O's. That can be learned. All that can be learned. What I cared about is how are you going to relate to your position group? How are you going to relate to the kids? Are you going to bring the best out of them? Are you going to challenge them every day? Are you going to hold them accountable? Are you going to love on them? Are you going to allow them to love you back? Right? Because kids, we all know, when kids believe in something and they know you care about them, as Maya Angelou once said, people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Right.
And I want to make sure I had coaches, quality coaches who were great men, great men with great intention of getting to know the individual rather than just be transactional and just having them perform well, right? I want coaches who are going to be transformational in their approach as the, what's the guy's name? Yes, Joe. So that's what I cared about the most. I didn't care about how much they knew or what they didn't know. That can be learned. That can be taught, right? Even if it's me teaching them or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to bring guys in who know football and who can bring that stuff in, because I know I'm limited when it comes to knowledge of the game. I'm still learning, right? I don't know everything, but I tell you what I do know. I know how to get better. I know how to work. There's two people in this world: people who watch and people who work. I'm the one who's working.
Got it. That's a great way to think about it, right? It's we can coach our staff in the same way that we're going to coach our athletes in filling in the gaps of knowledge, but teaching people to care and to be genuine and authentic and committed is a little bit different story. So I like that approach. I think that's very thoughtful and smart, a smart way to approach filling out your staff. You mentioned that the culture when you arrived wasn't what you were hoping for, and that was an area of focus that you were going to need to pour into. As such, what would you say is the best thing you do as a program that has the largest ripple effect on your culture? What is it that allows your culture to take root and be sustained over the long haul in regards to what you're shooting for?
First thing that comes to mind is the ground rules of work ethic, being accountable. There's consequences for accountability, but also serving our community. I take great pride in this, the community work that we do on 4th of July, on Memorial Day. We help veterans who can't clean their yard, pick weeds, yard work. We do that. Take trips to the dump. We do that. So it's more of a community type of environment that I have, a family environment, to where not only are they learning how to play the game of football, they're not only learning how to show up on time, be held accountable, and work hard. That comes with the game. Right. But more so, I want to teach these young men how to be men and what that looks like. And it goes beyond just football. It goes beyond just a practice field or game day. So we take a lot of great pride. We even started a youth flag football, summer flag football league with the little kids. And a buddy of mine, he's on my staff, my defensive coordinator. His name's Ramirez. I give him a lot of credit, because he's like my right-hand man per se. He is the guy that I really go to for advice if I have questions or doubts, because he's a community guy. He's grown up in that community, graduated from Gonzales, so he knows exactly what goes on in that town. And I'll go to him for a lot of decisions and a lot of questions I may have. I go to him. And he's the one that started our booster club called the Shield Bears Booster Club. And he also spearheaded this summer league flag football for the youth. So we give a lot to our community. We don't just take, we give a lot, because how many parents out there will say, man, I love what they do. I love what they do. I love this coach because of this, X, Y, and Z, right? So, but yet their kids are not involved in X, Y, and Z. Kids are not involved in it. Why? Because there's no opportunities for that. Another thing I'm really grateful for is we take part every year in the spring is the We Care program at the Salda Penitentiary. And people who are not familiar with this, so there's a program called We Care. And what they do is we bring about 20 kids. They check in the prison if they were inmates. It's very similar to that show Scare Straight that was on MTV many years ago. Yep. But they don't take that screaming and yelling, trying to intimidate you approach. This is more mentorship. So they assign 20 kids that I bring. They assign an inmate per kid, and we spend the whole day there. We eat breakfast in the hall. I tell you what, and I've been intimidated before, but golly, that experience in the halls and then walking down in the chow room and seeing, hey, coach, I got correctional officers tell me, hey, this dude, or this guy does this. He's a shot caller or whatever it may be, right? This is his ranking, what have you. So, this is like movie coming to life, right? Wow. And then you got guys in there, of course, that they look the part, inked up, head to toe, very intimidating, tough-looking guys. But then you got the guys who look like they belong behind a desk, right? The guys who just made one error in judgment, and now they're serving, X amount of time in jail or in prison. So we take that also with them, because I want my kids to understand. I want my boys to know that there's consequences for their actions, and all it takes is one error in judgment for them to end up there. So we spend a whole day from 6 a.m. coach to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we eat breakfast and lunch with the inmates. The inmates are doing their testimonials where they're talking about how they ended up there, kind of childhood they grew up in, why they're there, taking responsibility for the things that they did wrong, the people they hurt, people they killed, and how much time they're serving. And it's anything from obviously murder to DUIs, or drug deal gone bad.
Right.
So a lot of many stories, and these kids get to absorb that, they get to witness that. So that way, when they come to a crossroad in their life, they're equipped.
Yeah, and it probably hits home a little more because, as you said, you're 8 miles away from the prison, right? It is not something that is out of sight, out of mind when you live that close to it. And even though that may not be the path for the majority of them, it's just a good reminder of, hey, look, here's where this situation went wrong. Here are other ways that you can contribute. And here's even these hardened criminals, quote, right, giving back to your youth, trying to mentor them into other options. I think that's really, really interesting way to get at it. And it's something that, I would never consider. So thank you for sharing that. What have you learned throughout your career watching other teams play, practice, prepare, be it football or not? I've said multiple times on this podcast that I'm blessed. My office is right next to the pool, and I watch water polo practice and swimming practice all the time. And I'm a basketball coach, and I've found ways to steal from my colleagues and apply it to my sport. And so I'm always curious what others have been able to glean from their own experience watching, especially a guy like you that's trying to get better and learn every day.
Absolutely. I heard that previous podcast you had the volleyball coach on, and she talked about how she learned from the basketball coach, how she took things that he did. I believe it was a male coach. I can't remember, but I do the same thing, man. I seek out other coaches, guys I know who got their stuff together, right? So the thing about this world is the world always makes room for people who know who they are and then know what they're doing and where they're going. The world always makes room for those type of individuals. So I'll make sure I surround myself with those very same individuals. And I learn from them, whether it be basketball, track and field. I know when I was out Hartnell, I will help out the baseball coach in the weight room, but then I would attend his practices. I would attend track and field, and I'll just watch them. I'll just watch and observe. How do they connect with the kids? What kind of words are they saying? What's the verbiage and terminology they are using to coach the kids? And I will take that with me, right? Or, for example, when playoff season comes, if we're not in the playoffs, I'm going to Palma. I'm going to who was all the schools? Seaside. I'm going to all these other schools. Salinas High. I'm going to these schools because I want to see why. I mean, obviously they're successful for a reason, and not only successful but consistently successful. Right? That's the difference between being good to great. Is the great ones are consistent. The good ones are good, but they're not consistent. That's why they're not great. So I always make sure during that time I'm always absorbing, always watching. Like, for example, the cohorts, like the off-season conditioning, we never got to do it at our campus. We never got to do it. So I went to Hollister, watched them. I went to North Salinas, I watched them. I went to, what was the other school I went to? I can't remember. But I'm always trying to just pick brains, coach. As you guys, as everybody knows, it's written. It's biblical. Iron sharpens iron, right? So if it's biblical, you know what's right.
What are there any specifics that you can point to that's like, you know what? I was watching basketball practice this day. I really like this, and I put it into my football practice.
So I remember watching Coach Buller run a practice one time, and I loved how there was no lines. No lines. A lot of coaches waste a lot of time during practice because they have lines of 10, lines of 8, and they're waiting to get their turn to catch a ball or do what they need to do during that drill. But guys are all over the floor. Guys are always moving around, and everyone's getting reps. Everybody's getting reps. So I took that as well, right? I kind of did that already, but to see it done on the basketball court, it just kind of shifted something within my mind, and it enlightened me in a way to where I could do the exact same thing with certain drills I didn't think I could do. I was like, no, I can do this. So then I applied that.
Yeah, and I think that leads me into my next question, which is something I think we all mature in as we get older, right? How to maximize time and space. Whereas early on, we probably have people standing in lines and we're not super efficient. So how has your coaching approach changed during your career? Are there things that you can point to that are very specific that, hey, this is how I used to tackle this, and this is where I'm at now, and here's the reason, here's the why behind that growth?
I would have to say tackling. Tackling's the big one. So obviously, when we were growing up, during our time, leading with their helmet, anytime you could hit anyone with your helmet, you did that as much as possible.
Absolutely. I don't know what it was. Right? You were trying to get the stick marks on your helmet.
Yes, that was a badge of honor, right? How many stick marks you got comparing each other's helmets?
Yeah,
you don't be hitting nobody, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, and I remember guys would even hit their helmet on the ground so they can get stick marks because they couldn't do it during practice or game day, right? So it's just a badge of honor. So obviously the game has changed since then. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned that you can still be very efficient in tackling and be a very good tackling team, even without going full speed, full throttle, bang, bang, collision, bang, bang to the ground. I learned how to develop progressional drills in tackling to where we're using bags, or if we are tackling the person in front of us during practice time, it's within a short space. So we can't hit hard, we can't go full speed, but we're not coming from 15 miles away where it ends up being a car wreck. Instead, now we reduce that to 5 yards, and we're still just as intense, but now it's more technique based rather than just being, I'm going to take your head off.
I like that. Like how the idea of growth. And since you're such a believer in that, and that's something that is on your calendar every day, right? How am I moving the needle in my personal development? I stole this from Tim Ferriss, and it's been something that's been fun so far. And what I'm curious about is overcoming failure, disappointment, learning from it to become your better self. Do you have a favorite failure that you've leaned on throughout your coaching career?
Does the failure have to be sports related, or it could be academic related maybe?
It can be whatever has been a transformational moment that you have carried with you and you point to, maybe not as you explain it to your student athletes, but it's definitely that moment for you where, wow, okay, I can point to this moment as, a seminal time in my life where I was able to then move forward and become my better self.
Hey, man, the first experience that comes to mind is when I was in college, my senior year. A college professor asked me to stay after class one day. And as the last student exited the class, Dr. Neal was her name, and she was my English professor. She walks towards me. She asked me, Art, how come you don't participate in my class? How come you don't participate in our class discussions? And I sat there embarrassed. I'd never been called out. I've never been held accountable in that way, in a classroom anyway. And again, keep in mind, I've been in school for 4 or 5 years now. Not one professor has ever approached me this way. So I sat there embarrassed. I didn't know what to tell her. I just said, I lack the confidence. I'm terrified of speaking in front of people. I didn't feel that I had the intelligence or the articulation to speak in front of an intellectual setting, in front of my intellectual classmates. And she told me that it changed me forever. She said, Art, I've read your body of work. You are more intelligent and more articulate than you give yourself credit for. You have a voice. You need to share this voice. She said, people need to hear what you have to say. And it changed me. I remember walking to my car, coach. I remember walking to my car after that class, and I thought, I'm going to drop this class. She's going to make me talk in front of the class. I don't want to do that. I was so vulnerable. I was very terrified of speaking in front of people, especially in the academic setting, just because I didn't feel I was intelligent as the rest. And that was not the case. She proved me to be wrong. And even though I didn't believe in myself, coach, as many people go through this, even though we don't believe in ourselves, sometimes it takes an individual to believe in us, even though we don't believe in ourselves, but we believe what they're telling us, right? So I believe everything my Dr. Neal, my professor, told me. I didn't believe what she was telling me, but I tell you what, I believed her belief in me. That's what I did believe. Yeah. Right. So ever since then, now, coach, I'm a speaker. I speak at graduations. I officiate weddings. I get asked to be keynote speaker at certain events. I'm a head football coach. I'm an educator. I'm always speaking now. I can't stop speaking. But that moment really changed the trajectory of my life, and not only my life, but as far as what I was capable of and who I was. Right?
Yeah, that's a great story. And it makes me wonder how often we as humans run away from feedback versus embracing it. And nobody wants to be criticized. Nobody wants to hear the hard truth sometimes, but a success hack is to lean into that discomfort, take it for what it is, somebody trying to help you get better. And if you can put your defensiveness aside, there's pearls of wisdom and all that feedback. And that's something that definitely comes with maturity. And for all of us, the quicker we can get to that point, the faster our growth curve will become. Here's a follow-up to that. So as you coach, right, you have philosophies, you get dug in on strategy. We all have our things that we believe in. Mm-hmm. As a teacher, as a coach, whatever it may be.
Right.
What have you most recently changed your mind on from a coaching standpoint? I used to believe this, and I'm here now, and here's why.
Well, that's a good one. Let me think about that one.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just edit all the dead time out. All good. Take your time. And here, let me give you some context. I'm listening to Dave Stachowiak on Coaching for Leaders. I'm on my bike, and he throws that question out to whomever he's talking about it. And my mind instantly goes to, wow, that's a really good question. Where have I done that in my own life? And I'm going to go home and ask my 17-year-old that question, not because it's for her to take with her, but because if you can think about that when you are in these, let's say, political disagreements, right? Or spaces where you're trying to be right versus trying to learn, right? If that's your mindset now, you're curious instead of furious, right? Whatever cliche you want to throw into there. How powerful would that be to really think about, yeah, I've changed my mind before, and here's why.
Mm-hmm. I think about what I learned previously. We all set goals. We all have team meetings about goals. Mm-hmm. And what I did before when I first arrived was I would give a handout, a piece of paper to the group, not only to the players, but to the coaches. Hey, what are your top 3 goals? What are your individual goals, team goals? What are they? They write them out. But now I've learned, especially during this whole pandemic, I really took a lot of time to understand not just setting goals, mm-hmm. but also speaking them into existence, right? The whole law of attraction, mm-hmm. but not only speaking them to existence, but also working towards that to where it's a daily routine mm-hmm. of reminding us those very goals we set. It's one thing to set the goals, speak them to existence, and then never revisit them. We just go about our business, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've learned this whole time, and which actually I've implemented in my own personal life for personal growth, mm-hmm. is I wake up every morning, I have a routine. Every night before I go to bed, I have a routine. The same routine I do in the morning is the same routine I do at night. It takes about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. What I do is I wake up a little earlier than usual, so that way my kids don't interrupt me or my wife and get ready for the whole day. Mm-hmm. Those who have families understand exactly what I'm talking about. And I write my goals out. I say them out loud and I write it. Mm-hmm. And then I also say I am affirmations. I am able. I am willing. I am courageous. I am created on purpose for purpose. Mm-hmm. I'm gifted. I am seeking what is seeking me. Mm-hmm. These are things I repeat to myself daily. Mm-hmm. And then I listen to some kind of music, something that's going to encourage me, whether it be on YouTube or maybe a motivational thing from Les Brown or T.D. Jakes or E.T., Eric Thomas or Inky Johnson, mm-hmm. the guys who are the dudes when it comes to that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'll listen to something positive, right? So I'm not only setting goals and speaking affirmations to myself, reminding who I am, why I'm here, but I'm preparing my mind for the day. I'm preparing my body of work that's about to happen, that's about to take place. I'm getting myself in that mindset for those things to be accomplished. Mm-hmm. And when I reach a roadblock where I self-doubt, because I tend to self-doubt myself a lot. Oftentimes, I think people can maybe relate to this, where we talk ourselves out of doing things more than we talk ourselves into doing things. Mm-hmm. That was my problem. That was a paradigm that I begin to work on, and I'm shifting as we speak. Mm-hmm. So when I reach that, where self-doubt comes in, like, coach, you ain't good enough. You ain't going to win in this new league. You got moved up to the mission. You're not going to win, mm-hmm. right? It's like, no, I am able. I'm confident. I'm courageous. I'm willing to do what it takes. I'm seeking what's seeking me, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I've learned over the course of these last 4 years as being a head coach is I've taken the step of not just setting goals and writing them down and then never revisiting them, but also spending more time making an emphasis during our team meetings to start meetings or end meetings, or maybe in the middle of meetings, and having our kids vision after a win, right? Or a certain game, a rival game or a championship game, envision yourself making the play, envision the crowd, the stands, the community embracing you after a victory, singing the fight song after a big win, right? Yep. So I think that's part of the biggest thing I've learned when it comes to personal growth. And this is something that goes beyond, right? These kids will learn this as high school kids, as teenagers, but this is something they can apply to the rest of their life, right? It's a skill that they're going to learn. I'm preparing, again, I'm always trying to relate things, what we do, to their life.
Right.
That's it. It's not going to be a short-term thing. It's going to be a long-lasting effect I want to have on these young men.
Yep. No, I love that. And I think what you're doing is taking an idea of goal setting and realizing that it needs a system to become real. And you're teaching your kids that system of accomplishment and routine and habit, which, you know, the most successful people in the world will share what their morning routines look like, which we all take for granted. And you're sharing that with your athletes, probably at the cost of practice time, which in this part of your journey, you've now realized, look, this is more important to what they're going to take with them than us getting extra reps doing X, Y, or Z. So knowing that now, 10 years as an assistant coach, 4 years as a head coach, deep into your coaching journey, if you were starting over today, what would you do differently? And while most of us wouldn't change a whole lot because it's part of who we are, I'm more interested in the advice you would give your younger self to help you be more efficient and reach kids or athletes earlier so that they're not waiting for us to go through our natural maturing process.
Yes. You know what? I think about all the time, right? I have a son, I have a daughter, and I think about when I was a teenager, how would I respond to the coach I am today? How would that 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid respond to the coach I am today? How would I react to him, right? So I think about that often, and I don't know how that would play out. I know I would be receptive. I know. I guess what comes to mind is how important, again, connection is, human connection, and how kids will do anything for you. They'll show up at 6 o'clock in the morning because, again, they know how much you care about them. They don't care about how much you know, as the cliche goes. Because when I first started off, coach, I swear it was 3-hour practices, 2.5-hour practices, grinding them, coaching them hard. And it was just that, you know how it is. We coached the way we were coached, right? Just like parents parent the way they were parented. So knowing what I know now, 14 years in the game, I would definitely now understand you treat every kid a little differently because of personality, needs and wants. You connect with different kids differently. Some kids love to be coached hard. It brings the best out of them. Some kids fold, right? They quit. They won't even show up the next day because you ripped them. You got them good one day, right? So understanding that early on definitely probably would have saved me a lot of headaches as to why certain kids are just being defiant or just very difficult. And now what I know now is that I would take more time to pull that kid aside rather than just addressing the group. You know how oftentimes you're having an issue with a certain kid or maybe a small group of kids and you take it on the whole team. Like, why aren't you guys doing this? Why aren't you guys doing that? Instead, take that group to the side, meet with them, and let's get down to it. Let's be real. Why? What is it that you guys are so resistant about, right? The rest of your teammates are bought in. They're on board. But you guys are just giving me so much trouble. It's a challenge. So now I know now I know what I know now. I would take that group to the side, say, hey, this is what's going to happen. I need you guys to speak with me right now. And then I will meet with them individually, coach, because I don't want them feeding off each other.
Right.
I don't want them echoing what the other guy echoes because that's my boy and I got to back him up. Even though I might not necessarily agree with them, but that's my boy and I got to show loyalty, right? So I would individually meet with them and then ask those very same questions and then bring them together as a group and meet with them as well. So that's part of what I have done definitely 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and that's a great technique piece that you just shared, because I think that's always a battle for us in how we address a group, right? It's, do you lay into a kid in front of everyone and now you create that dynamic, or do you address the whole group so that a kid isn't getting put on blast in front of everybody?
Right.
Or do you bring them, it's always a struggle. And what's the best way to approach that to reach our goals, which is really to get that athlete to reach their potential in service of the team. And really good approach and technique to doing that. I am curious about, if you were to take a job elsewhere and you're starting over from scratch, and you're coming into a situation similar to what you had the first time. You're hired late, you don't have prep time, you're coming onto a campus where you don't have the connections you had at Gonzales because you're a South County guy.
Right.
What are the 3 things that you would tell yourself are the most important things to do to set the table for what you're hoping to become?
I would have to say the first thing that popped into my head was I have to be myself. I cannot manipulate who I am or sugarcoat or pretend I'm somebody I'm not. I have to be authentic with me. Second thing I would have to do if I decide to take another job somewhere else, or another opportunity presented itself or another season of my life ended and a new one began, that I will have to make sure that community, that school, that environment is a good fit for me. I don't think oftentimes coaches consider that. They just take a job and then they deal with all this challenges and adversity because it just, from Jump Street, it wasn't a good fit. But because they needed a job or they wanted this job, they took it anyway, right? So those are the first 2 things I would definitely have to do. Be me. This is my vision. This is my philosophy. If you like it, great. If you don't, then let's shake hands or go separate ways and let's move on. Not waste any more time. And then of course, making sure it's a good fit for me, good fit for my family, good fit for my vision, my philosophy, things I want to do, things, and the resources. I have everything I need, coach. I don't need the resources, man. I came from nothing. I started with nothing. So resources is not an issue for me. I don't care about resources. I'll have everything I need there. As long as I have the kids who are going to buy in, I put together a good staff. We're ready to rock and roll. If I got admin support, that's even better, right? So I think oftentimes admin they deter a lot of coaches away just because they don't have the same vision, right? We always talk about, we got to surround ourselves with like-minded people. I have to make sure that's a number 1 priority, emphasis, if I ever had when I do move on or if I move on.
Yep. Well, I think that's a great place to close, is identifying when you are potentially seeking a job that you are individually a mission appropriate fit for that location, right? Does my personal mission and belief system fit with the institution that I'm considering working for? And just because you might not fit right now doesn't mean you might not fit down the road. But I think you nailed it when you said sometimes people just take jobs just to take them. Those don't generally end up working out if the pieces don't fit. And it's a great way to look at this, especially you as a family man who wants your kids to grow up around your athletes and be part of the program. I would go back to what you said at the very beginning. How do you balance time between family and coaching? Is you bring it together, right? They're part of your team. They're on the bus. They're at practice. They're doing the things that you're asking everyone else to do because that's part of the leadership model, and your kids benefit from it. They're learning from the trickle down coaching in a way that they're not normally going to get that. And I think that's a great way to wrap that up and to identify one more thing you said, which is trying to be a present father so that you leave a legacy for your children. And I heard something the other day, which I never really considered, which was we're parenting our grandchildren. when we are parenting our own kids. And it's, you don't think about that, but it's the way in which you shared that brought me back to that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Appreciate having you here today. Really fun. Great to catch up and learn from one of the best in our area.
Coach, appreciate you, man.